Very much. I'd like to yield to the distinguished gentleman from Louisiana, Mr. Fleming, such time as he may consume.
Thank you to the gentleman for yielding. I've put up a quote here, which I'll get to in just a moment, and it is on the subject that we're currently discussing about stem cell research. And I apologize if some of this is redundant, but I think this new information is very interesting and very exciting, and I think it bears perhaps a little important redundancy. For more than a decade, Congress has been debating the ethics of using taxpayer dollars to fund research that requires the destruction of a human embryo. Science is making this debate obsolete. At the beginning of the embryonic stem cell debate, only 2 years after human embryonic stem cells were first derived, President Clinton's Bioethics Council concluded, and here it is written, that in our judgment, in 1999, the National Bioethics Advisory Commission under President Clinton said, in our judgment, the derivation of embryos remaining following infertility treatments is justifiable only, that is only, if no less morally problematic alternatives are available for advancing this research. Now, thanks in part to the very same researcher who first discovered how to derive human embryonic stem cells, researchers have discovered how to make pluripotent embryonic-like stem cells without harming or destroying a human embryo. Let me repeat that. They've discovered a way of creating embryonic-like stem cells without harming or destroying a human embryo. You may have heard about these cells. They're called iPSC, for induced pluripotent stem cells. They were first discovered in 2007. These cells are made by reprogramming adult cells, such as cells from your skin, into embryonic-like cells. And of course, just to diverse for a moment, to understand what the purpose of this whole idea of stem cells is taking undifferentiated cells, and the future is amazing. We could create organs potentially. Just think about in terms of kidneys, hearts, or whatever being transplanted. We would have organs that would no longer require any sort of immunosuppressive drugs. Anyway, in the 2 years since this technique was first published, hundreds of scientists have been feverishly at work perfecting this technique. Just this week, researchers published a major improvement on the technique of creating human iPSC stem cells. You may have read about this in the Washington Post that came out on Monday. Previously, in order to reprogram cells to the embryonic-like state, researchers relied on viruses which were known to cause cancer when injected into humans. Now, researchers have shown that it is possible to make iPSC stem cells without the harmful virus. In fact, the factors used to reprogram the cells are completely removed, leaving behind only the embryonic-like iPSC stem cells. So what this means is, not only are we having to use embryonic cells, which means destroying an embryo, a human life, but we can literally take it from the skin of an adult. And even more importantly, we don't have to use viruses to reprogram the nucleus. The problem with viruses, of course, you can introduce all sort of matter into the DNA, such as cancer, which is very dangerous. These cells are even better than embryonic stem cells from embryos created through IVF because they can both be patient-specific and disease-specific, even for diseases we only barely understand. Surely this meets the criteria set forth by the Clinton Bioethics Commission. Researchers, funded in part by our own National Institutes of Health, have discovered a viable and promising alternative to destroying embryos for their stem cells. Such research is no longer justifiable, even according to the Clinton criterion, which I've laid out here in large print. And certainly research that is both morally and controversial and out of date does not need to be subsidized by the American taxpayer. So even in spite of all of this, through private means, embryonic stem cell research can still go on, even though it's not needed, as long as taxpayers do not pay for it. I feel there was never a justification in the past to destroy embryos for the purpose of stem cell research, but now we have two reasons to embrace this new technology. And that is, as I pointed out a minute ago, the fact that it's safer because we don't have to use viruses and we no longer have to destroy embryos. So in closing, Mr. Speaker, surely even those who maintain a pro-abortion position will support this newer, safer technique which requires no federal dollars to destroy human embryos. And with that, I yield back my time.
I thank my good friend Mr. Fleming for his contribution and for his leadership. I would like to yield to Mr.